back home in France. So right there, you know, the American dream does exist. It was real for me, an immigrant from Africa. So, but you know, Jordan, with all of that success, one day I lost it. One day I was driving down Big Sur, one of the most beautiful roads, if you ask me, in the world. With
Highway 1.
Highway 1 with a Pacific.
Man, it's something, eh?
It's so beautiful. You cannot not believe in God when you're on that path, okay?
I need to go to that road because I've never been on that road and I want to see it for myself. If they say that's the highway of God, I want to see that. Well, probably not. Because that's like the stairway to heaven.
It's so beautiful. You cannot not believe in God when you're on that path, okay? That's how beautiful it is.
Yeah, especially if you're taking hairpin corners in a convertible.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, Jordan, it was one of those moments. That day was one of those days when the sun was, as usual, was shining. The ocean was beautiful. I was, you know, listening to some Yusundur in my car, great Senegalese musician, and just feeling so much gratitude and also so much pride in myself for what I was able to accomplish, and so much gratitude for everyone and everything that helped me get there. And just as many times, just like it happens, every time I got to that moment of bliss, right away my mood turned.
Wow.
Everything became dark, as it usually does. Because why? Because right at that moment, I started thinking about the people that I had left back home.
Oh my gracious, man. I don't know what to do. I was looking for the hype button, but I'm not going to push it because it will probably ruin the mood right now, but I want to hit it because oh man, I understand what she's saying. Ooh, when things are going so good and then you're like, I can't even enjoy this because you think about, yeah, I think that's the devil right there. I think that Satan put those thoughts into our head right there.
I started thinking about the people that I had left back home. And it happened oftentimes through my life, you know, because how else do you feel when you're growing up and you hear your parents or you read the news, you hear the news, and it's saying that a body dropped from a plane somewhere above England.
Oh my gracious.
Because someone decided to migrate right to Europe for a better life, just like my parents did, but they did it again under better conditions. And they thought it would be a good idea to hide into the landing gear. But somewhere above, you know, London, above England, the body falls. Or they open the plane and they find in the cargo section of a plane a frozen body. Somebody thought it would be a good idea to hide in the cargo section of a plane. No one told them. It gets so cold up there. Or, you know, this boat just tipped. This little fisherman's boat just tipped, you know, somewhere along between the coast of Senegal and Spain, which is the first entry into Europe for these people. But the boat tipped over. It is not equipped to make this journey. And in the boat, you have babies, you have young people, primarily young people. And these are some of our most entrepreneurial people, the people that we need to build the prosperity back home. And where are they now? Lying at the bottom of the ocean, serving as fish food.
Oh my gosh. And with that being on her heart and her mind at all times, she can't complete her journey without going back to save others. At least that's what I'm gathering. And sometimes that's called, what's it called? Survivor's remorse. That's a real thing.
How else would you feel if for years growing up, these are the stories that you're hearing, and yet
why do you think your conscience bothered you at that point? I mean, you'd come to the States, you'd become successful, you had this beautiful day, and so why all of a sudden do you suppose your thoughts turned to the people that had been left behind, so to speak? I mean, it wasn't your fault that they were in the state they were in.
I know, yeah. I know, it wasn't my fault, for sure. It took me a long time to accept that it wasn't my fault. So what happened that day is I no longer was able to play the schizophrenia game that I've played my whole life. I was no longer able to, the coping mechanism that I had developed up till then no longer was holding. The coping mechanism that I had developed back for all of these years was, as soon as I started thinking about it, I would actually tell myself, this is not your fault. You have a life to live. It is not fair. Yeah, I would tell myself all of these stories, and then I would just shrug it under the rug. Act as if it... But that day, for some bizarre reason, it just no longer worked. And I lost it. I lost it. My body, it was, the feeling was so violent that my body jerked, literally. And it's a miracle that I'm talking to you, because my body jerked so much that with it, the steering wheel.
Oh, man.
And I was gonna end up down below in that ocean. But for some reason, it didn't. And as soon as I found a spot to stop, I stopped. And I got out of the car. Something major had happened. I still don't explain what it was. But at that time, Jordan, I surrendered. I surrendered. I said, God, from here on, I'm showing up. And I promise you, and I want you to help me make sure that every breath I take from here on is going to go towards the bettering of my continent.
Oh, wow. Wow, was that a panic attack? Is that now, y'all probably called me a fool for saying this, but and I do appreciate the fact that she decided to turn her life around in that way, because she was already having a fantastic life, phenomenal life. She made all of the moves she could possibly make in order to make sure she survived and did what she needed to do for herself. But had she not done that, she might not have been able to, she might not have had that moment of believing in herself so much where she can go back and get other people. In order to, sometimes you got to see that you can reach certain heights before you can go and try to bring other people to the promised land, if that makes any sense. It probably don't make any sense, but that's what sometimes survivor's remorse will do that to you, and people will beat themselves up even when they're the richest of the rich, most popular, most beautiful, most funny, all these other things, and they're still super depressed, taking over. I know success does not dictate happiness. You're not, just because you got money, it doesn't say you're supposed to be happy. I get all that. I get you on that. It was still something in her that, because of all of the trauma that she knows of personally, she had to make sure she did something about it. But she has to know she wouldn't have been that blessed if it wasn't for God. God wasn't upset with her. God was why she was so blessed. But God is also the reason why she so empathetic and felt like she had to do something personally. So man, this is heavy.
Right? I just made that deal with God. I said, this is what I'm showing up for this. I present and I offer myself. This is
why did you think this was between you and God, so to speak?
Because it was so big. It was so big. And it was so big, and he's the only one that I trusted to help me with that. The only one. And most importantly, I had no idea what to do about it. But I knew that faith would be my best ally in this until I could figure it out.
Yeah, well, faith sometimes is the courage to do difficult things.
You know what? It's a very good way to look at it, and maybe that's what happened that day. Because that day I was definitely not willing, or let I say, not capable at least, of being a coward about it anymore. Because my whole life I was pretty cowardish about it, if you think about it.
Why?
You was not. I'm sorry. I'm gonna let Jordan Peterson talk to you. I don't think you was.
Why
anyway.
cowardly? Why would you say that about yourself?
I don't know. It's just because.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But
the idea that in order to no longer feel the pain, I would have to push it under the rug. I don't find that very courageous. But I didn't know what else to do, because otherwise the pain was just going to drag me into places. But at least I had the sanity to know were not safe or healthy for me until I knew how to get into those dark spaces, right? Which, by the way, I learned afterwards, because afterwards I used knowledge to my rescue. The understanding really helped settle everything.
Yeah, well, it is a terrible thing. It is a terrible thing to look on the poverty and the corruption, let's say, of an entire continent and in some sense the entire world, and to contrast that with your own prosperity, and then to realize, at least in principle, that you have a moral duty to do something about it.
That's exactly.
That's no trivial undertaking.
That's exactly.
So, okay, so you're on the side of the road.
I love the way he wrapped all that up, which makes perfect sense. The thing I'm just saying, listen, I just don't think that that's her responsibility to even compare herself to that. Like, that's such a huge, like, that's a lot to carry on your shoulders. That's all I'm saying. That's a lot to carry on your shoulders. And sometimes we look at ourselves and how far we've come and how blessed we are. And we start feeling bad about it because we've done all of the right things in order to get here. I just don't believe that we should beat ourselves up about that. That's just me. But they're going to break it down as to why I'm wrong. So I'm looking forward to that.
And you've pulled over and you've had this realization. So continue.
Yeah, so I pulled on the side of a road. I had this realization. And eventually I said, from here on, this is the path I'm taking. And I want you to help me. So show me the way. I will be a good disciple.
Check you out.
And so
I like that.
And things started to change. And it started to change. A few months later, my husband, who was French, and I talk about him in the past tense because poor soul, he passed away shortly after, after all of this. Like,
oh, wow.
we had maybe a year together. I didn't know that then. But I took him home to Senegal to see the place I came from. And there he was asking me about this hibiscus beverage I've been telling him about forever. You know how it is when you're not from the same culture, that the first thing you teach one another is what you love about your respective cultures. And that's how a better culture is born out of that mixing. In any case, we're there and he's like, I want to try the hibiscus you're talking about. So, everywhere we go, at the restaurant or within my friend and family homes, you go there and they bring you to this plate. Coke, Fanta, Pepsi. I'm like, where is the hibiscus? Girl, where have you been? So basically what has happened, anybody who feels like is a somebody drinks the Western soda pop brands, the ones I just talked about. And the bottom of a pyramid, which is the bulk of the people, they drink knockout brands, those knockout brands. And in between, the traditional indigenous drink that we used to have is squeezed out. And with them, the livelihood of the women who are primarily the ones who used to grow the raw material, which is the hibiscus. So now these women are leaving the countryside, going and packing themselves in the cities, and they're, begging on streets, prostitution, maybe working in people's homes where they're being treated horribly. So anyway, this cycle of poverty is just keeping going. And there, I thought I was done with being depressed sometimes about the situation back home. I fell in a literal depression. For 3 days, my body was not willing to obey me anymore. It was just like, I'm done. I was so disappointed with the world because now here I am. Not only do I have my people now dying, but now I also have my culture dying. Because my hibiscus drink, which is called bissap, it's the juice of teranga. Teranga means hospitality. That is what the people of Senegal are known for. So this is a part of our cultural identity. Yet it is not on that plate that they brought me. So when I think of a plate, I think of a world stage. And when I think of the drinks on it, I think of the cultures of the world that matter.
My God.
So much that they're on that plate. Well, what am I seeing? I'm not there. And that's a big problem. Because if you're not there, it means your culture is disappearing. And if your culture disappears, the only time people might remember me in the future is going to be in museums.
Why do you use the metaphor of the table?
I was just thinking the same, man. I swear to goodness, Jordan Peterson in my head, bro. He's in my head, man. I was wondering why she used that. Like, seriously, man. Because this, y'all already seen that. I understand both of them. I agree with both of them, but I still have my own little side way of thinking that they both might not fully buy into. So, yeah, I really want to know that.
You know what? I never thought about it. I don't know. It's just something that came to my mind when I saw that. It was just like I saw that plate, I saw the drinks on it, and it was just, our world was right there. The plate was
it's a divine symbol, right? That's an ancient divine symbol that in some sense, the collective table, the table of the gods. To have a seat at the table is to be part of the conversation and to be part of the elect in some real sense, to be welcomed in with hospitality and to share and to distribute and to mutually enjoy. It's a very, very old idea. So it's very striking to me that was the metaphor that sprung to mind, because we want everyone to come to the table, don't we? That's the plan.
We do, and that's the plan.
See, Jordan Peterson too much, man, because that's not why I was asking. This dude goes back into some real, like, this is a real situation right here. Like, when somebody comes to the table, that's deeper than rap right there. That's somebody that you know, trust, love. You want them to be at the table. You want them to eat. You don't want to waste any crumbs on the floor for them to eat after that. No, you want them to be at the table with you. Everybody. Man, that's how. Is it possible? I don't think it's possible.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. I never made the connection, but now that you're bringing it up, it does make perfect sense, actually. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure interesting. Well, you started that part of our conversation with a bit of an introduction to a religious experience that you had while you were driving, and the fact that table metaphor popped up there makes perfect sense from a symbolic perspective. You know, you also want the table to be laden with the finest of produce, right? And you want it to be a place of plenty and generosity as well as hospitality, and an invitation to everyone to enjoy. That's all part of life more abundant. And
that's right.
Bringing everyone to the economic table is a way of moving forward towards that goal, right? Okay, so the hibiscus drink, that really bothered you.
Yes, so that's all of our goals, man. When we do something great, we want everybody that we know and love to be a part of it. Sometimes people don't think that. They think, oh, you're out there chasing your stuff. You're doing great and everything. What about us? What about us? You're like, I got to get to it first before I can, you know what I mean? You got to focus on that thing before you. Sometimes you can say, you know what? You're right. Come on, guys, we can do it together. But then it's just so much with that, man. It's so much with that. I'm going to let them go ahead and talk because they are the experts. They are why we're here.
So I got ill for 3 days. I was just shut down. I could not move anymore. I was pissed off. I was disappointed. I was sad. I was depressed. And my husband's like, my God, this anger of yours, it's energy, but it's negative energy. You got to find a way to turn it around into positive energy when it becomes inspiration, and then you use it to fuel yourself. And with that, and this old concept I grew up with of criticize by creating, it's Michelangelo's, but that's very much the rules under which I was raised. I don't need you to have a right answer, you know, my grandma or my father would say, but I need to know that you have thought of alternatives. They don't have to be the right ones, but I want to know that you have thought of solutions, because when you're in solutions mode, you no longer are a victim. It's a completely different mindset, and I think that's more what they were going for.
Yeah, well, you know, the other thing that's interesting about that too, I think, is that, first of all, I think that's a good rule of thumb, but also people...
That's an excellent rule of thumb, God dang it. I really enjoyed that part right there. Come on now.
That too, I think, is that, first of all, I think that's a good rule of thumb, but also people have problems and they're often annoyed and oppressed by the fact they have problems. But first of all, you don't have all the problems in the world. You have your problems and the problems that bother you. And you might ask yourself, well, why do those problems bother you and not other problems? And I would say maybe it's because in those problems you actually find your destiny. And those are often things you don't want to look at, like you didn't want to look at the poverty of your continent, and no bloody wonder, who wants to look at that? But it was something that bothered you. It turned out that was your problem. And if you faced it, well, then you figured out on that road that that was your destiny, properly speaking.
Yes, and it was not always easy for me to recognize that or to see it as clearly as I do today. But yes, if I did not follow that, if I did not pursue that question, I would not be sitting here talking to you right now, because there would be no reason for it.
I don't know. I think now, you see, y'all, I keep on getting on y'all nerves. I already know I am, but it's okay. It's okay. You're going to have family members who you're not always going to agree with. I'm sure you go to dinners, Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas dinners, just regular dinners, Sunday dinners. I don't know. But there's a bunch of people in your life right now that you don't particularly jive with, but you still love them and you call them family. All right. I'm that person for you. All right. But I believe that Magat Wade and Jordan Peterson were going to cross paths regardless. I think that's just how God works. I think that's how God works. You have a young lady who was already on the path of success, who was already doing remarkable things. And then she had to come into the Jesus moment and said, I'm leaving other people behind. I don't like it. I need to go get them. And now she's back doing great things all over again. Remarkable things. One of those remarkable things was going to bring her in front of Jordan Peterson, and they was going to have this conversation, and it was going to be fantastic regardless. It was. Eventually, you was going to. That's just how I believe, man. That's just what I believe. But for the moment, and we're going to finish this conversation. But for now, I want to hear what you got to say about this in the comments below. If you have yet to hit that subscribe button, please make sure you do so on your way out the door. Once again, guys, I'm Van, and now we are all the LFR family, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and hopefully inside the Patreon as well. We are going to finish this, all right? We are going to finish this. All right, see y'all next time. Love y'all.